Welcome to the We Can Fix Climate Change podcast, where we'll be discussing practical techniques to combat climate change. Join us on our quest towards a better, more sustainable future. Subscribe today to stay updated on the latest episodes and explore real solutions on how we can preserve our planet for generations to come. In today's episode, we'll cover the global warming trends represented by warming stripes, the World Bank's warnings about fossil fuel and farming subsidies, the lack of credible net zero targets among subnational governments and large companies, the rise of the domestic clean energy industry in the US, and the potential for new job creation in the clean energy sector to offset job losses in the fossil fuel industry.
Have you ever wondered how much temperatures have changed over the years in your country, region, or city? Well, now you can get a visual representation of these changes thanks to the warming stripe graphics. These graphics show the temperature change over the past 100 plus years, with each stripe representing the temperature averaged over a year. Usually these stripes start from the year 1900 and finish in 2022. However, for some countries, regions, and cities, they can date back to the 19th century or even the 18th century. In fact, there's a special day dedicated to these stripes. It's called Show Your Stripes Day, and it happens every year on June 21st. On this day, meteorologists and other climate communicators around the world use these stripes to raise awareness about climate change. Why June 21st, you ask? It's because it's the summer solstice, which marks the start of the season with the biggest extremes like heat waves, hurricanes, and wildfires. By using these stripes, the Climate Central website helps to tell the story of climate change and advance critical conversations on this important topic. Visit showyourstripes.info today to get warming stripes for where you live, and don't forget to share them on social media for Show Your Stripes Day.
Have you heard about the report that The Guardian published titled "Vast Fossil Fuel and Farming Subsidies Causing Environmental Havoc"? According to the World Bank, the global economy is being heavily distorted by $5.3 trillion a year in subsidies to fossil fuels and agriculture. These subsidies are driving climate change and biodiversity loss. It's a mind-boggling amount. The World Bank is urging governments to take action and reform these subsidies while also investing in green alternatives. It's amazing to see such a large organization taking a stand and pushing for change. It just shows how important it is to be environmentally conscious and take steps towards a more sustainable future.
Hey there. In our next segment, we'll be talking about an article published by Grist that caught our attention. The article is titled, "Net Zero Targets Are More Popular Than Ever, but Less Than 5% Are Credible," and it highlights a concerning issue. A report released by Net Zero Tracker, which is a collaboration among 4 environmental nonprofits and research organizations, reveals that a significant number of subnational governments and 40% of the world's largest companies lack a net zero target. This raises questions about national governments' ability to drive down climate pollution. Out of the subnational governments and companies that have a target, not even 5% meet minimum procedural requirements for credibility. For instance, these targets fail to cover greenhouse gas emissions associated with the products businesses sell to consumers. The findings of this report point to a clear gap between rhetoric and reality. It is imperative that governments and companies step up and develop credible net zero targets to tackle climate change effectively.
Have you heard the encouraging news about the U.S. clean energy industry? According to Electrek, a new study by the Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory has shown that U.S.-made wind and solar components are now cheaper than imports. How cool is that? This is all thanks to lower transportation costs and higher quality. Plus, it could really boost the domestic clean energy industry and create more jobs in the U.S. The study found that thanks to the Inflation Reduction Act's 45X Advanced Manufacturing Production Tax Credit, the cost of solar panels both assembled in the U.S. and made from 100% U.S.-made components are now 30% cheaper than imported solar panels. Not only that, but U.S.-made onshore and offshore wind components like towers, turbine blades, and nacelles will now also be cheaper than imported components for the first time ever. So it's a win-win situation. Cleaner energy, more jobs, and a cheaper alternative for consumers. What's not to love?
Next, we're discussing a recent Carbon Brief publication that highlights a new study pointing towards net zero transition jobs offsetting fossil fuel job losses in Republican US states. These strongholds, including Texas, Wyoming, and Oklahoma, could potentially gain hundreds of thousands of jobs in the clean energy sector as the country moves towards a net zero economy. The study explains that jobs in low-carbon industries would outweigh losses in most of the country's fossil fuel-rich regions as oil, coal, and gas operations close down. In fact, total employment in the nationwide US energy sector could double or even triple by 2050 to meet the demand for wind turbines, solar panels, and transmission lines. This is great news for those states as the clean energy sector continues to boom.
Today, we discussed the use of warming stripes to represent temperature change, the warning by the World Bank on fossil fuel subsidies' impact on climate change and biodiversity loss, the lack of credible net zero targets by subnational governments and large companies, the cost-effectiveness of US-made wind and solar components over imports, and the potential job creation in the clean energy sector. For more information on these stories and the sources cited in this podcast, be sure to visit our weekly Substack newsletter. Links are in the description. Thanks for listening to today's episode. I'll see you guys at the next one, and don't forget to subscribe.